So, I welcome you to this 8th week session, where we had been discussing about the turnaround strategies, and in continuation of that we are going to discuss about another important issues related to the change, and that is strategic convergence. When we are talking about strategic convergence and learning, basically the idea is that this convergence happens because different kind of activities converge with each other to ensure that change is successfully initiated, executed and implemented. Another important issue related to strategic convergence is that when one change is initiated, this facilitates or this also requires other kind of changes to happen, and then different kind of change that happens together converge with each other to provide some advantage to the organization, and then we also learn from these convergences that what needs to be done in order to ensure that the change is effective, that we are going to discuss later. Now, when we are talking about convergence and strategic convergence especially, first of all let us look at the architecture, that how we proceed, as we have discussed in previous lectures, that there are three important areas or blocks you can say related to effective change management, and the first one is that you need to look at the structure of the change that happens, then how this goes on, the process of the change, and then you also look at the outcome. Now, if you look at these three different features of the change architecture, which is related to structure, process and output, you can see that what kind of a structure would be required to ensure that change is facilitated and it is implemented successfully. And if you look at this, you can see that the different viewpoints like convergence happens only because you have a good governance structure. It means that how people perform their roles and relationship, what kind of relationship is there, what kind of rules, values and beliefs are there. So, that is what is related with governance. Then accountability of the people. So, whether people feel responsible and accountable for what they do or not, what kind of communication strategies adopted, what is the process of communicating with each other vertically and horizontally both. Then what kind of strategic objectives is there related to the change, whether you have considered it as a part of the project management, whether you have identified the task forces which would be required to implement the change, and then what kind of interlocking mechanism and reporting lines are there, how people are related interacting, and how the reporting across verticals happens. And then the most important thing is that the level of transparency that exists in the structure. So, structure is another important variable which needs to be looked into. Then you look into the process, the how it goes about it, and there look into various processes like engagement, commitment, what kind of dialogues is there, how people share the information, whether people have problem orientation or not. So, through these processes actually and this structure, it enables organizations to achieve certain level of outputs in terms of how people get connected with each other, building relationship, how they get leverage, how they maintain consistency across their activities, how they can scale up the things, how one kind of change is aligned with another kind of change, then whether you are able to achieve the critical mass or not, we have already talked about it. Then something that happens, I mean your expectations, how it is being managed by the people in the organization, and then how credible the change team is. If the credibility is there, you are able to manage through expectations, you achieve the critical mass that is required through alignment and these activities, then you can say that yes, the change is effective. So, the basic idea is that you need to create a architecture for the change, but if you do not create an architecture, you do not define everything in terms of structure and processes, it would be very difficult for you to achieve these outcomes. Moving further, if you look at this outcome, then you can see that there are different blocks related to what you call the change management. Now, it depends upon the positive forces and the negative forces, which you are calling basically the drivers for the change, right. Now, these forces can also act as positive forces, driving forces, as it could also act as restraining forces. So, that is why we call it positive or negative forces. So, the same force may act as positive force or also act as a negative force. Now, the most important thing here is you can look at it, that what is your ambition, how ambitious you are, how ambitious your plan is, so far the change is concerned, whether you are really concerned with it or not, we will talk about it. And the another important thing is the change that is happening in the economy, okay, overall economy. And then what is the outcome in terms of returns, satisfaction, what is the attitude of the stakeholders. So, all these act as a driving force. If you find that it is a better return to change in the economy, it means the economy is moving up, there is a better growth prospects. Okay. You are really ambitious and you find that yes, the return satisfaction, stakeholders attitude is positive, then this converges with what you call the force of change architectures. This is the forces of change architecture that we have talked about, like structure, output and the processes. So, these two converge with each other, they lead to what you call the confidence. It means that if it is positive, this is also positive, then you can expect that the outcome would be much better or positive. But if these forces are negative, then the degree of confidence is going to be low, and that is why we call this side you say it is said as low, or this side it is high. So, if there are positive forces on both sides, then it would lead to better outcome and you will have confidence to achieve those outcomes in terms of what? Listening, support, enthusiasm from the people, energy and problem solving from the people who are actually involved in the change process. And if it is low, then the change is not going to be successfully implemented, because people are not going to accept it, as there is low confidence, they are not confident that these objectives is possible to be achieved, and that is why there could be rejections from the people who are participating in the process. They might distort the things, okay. They might even go back, regress their activities, moving ahead and then going back. So, if they are doing certain things, then they step back, they say no, whatever we have been doing so far is good enough. So, let us not move ahead, or even they also adopt a tactics which is known as delaying the things, because they are not confident enough that whether it is possible to achieve the expected outcomes or not. So, it is very important to ensure that your change architecture is designed properly in terms of your structure processes, so that you are able to achieve these outcomes, and then also see that the forces for the change are very positive, right. Now, moving further, if you look at the convergence level and the purpose, why we converge and what is the basic objective of this convergence? A convergence happens at different level. Look at this. Now, if there is a convergence at the product level, it means R&D efforts have got something to do with it, and then it results in product innovation. It means that you are coming out with a new product. It means all convergence related to product activities or production activities may lead to an output which is known as product innovation. Functional convergence, if you are going to change structure, systems and processes and they converge with each other, then you are going to have improved processes, right. So, there is a process innovation. When organizations converge with each other, organizations convergence happens, it means among the departments, people and other things, then value chain efficiency. It means that you are able to create a value chain which is going to be very efficient. What I mean by value chain is the different kind of activities which is happening in the organization. Then if technology convergence happens, it means it lead to a new technology or a new product. Then if industry convergence, if you are working in a particular industry and all industries come together to do certain things, then it could be new industry or there could be some kind of value for the customers. So, ultimately the customer is going to be benefited out of it. And then if it is a bio-artificial systems which is going to change, then the kind of innovations that is going to be there, it would be much better. That is why it is called ubiquitous. Ubiquitous means something that is going to be different and it is going to help people to ensure that it is going to improve their life, quality and also satisfaction. So, you can see that how convergence is happening at different level, starting with the product, function, organization, technology, industry, and this leads to different kind of innovations at different level. And that is why we are talking about convergence. And if the strategically organizations define that okay, we need to go for this kind of convergence, then they have a specific objective, whether they are going for product innovation, process innovation, technology innovations or customer innovation, right. Now, I am taking certain examples here that how this convergence happens related to products and services. For example, if we are going to talk about product convergence, so look at what happens. Cell phone, how different activities within a product, right, converges with each other to give a cell phone, which is going to be smarter than what it used to be earlier. So, it is not going to act only as a telephone, but you also have information access through internet. It also has a camera, you can play games also, right. So, if you look at the cell phone which perform different kind of activities, all of them converge together in a product, this is known as cell phone, right. Like a coffee where you are going to the soya milk, say decaffeinated diet, frappuccinos, all these merge together to make a coffee. So, coffee is a product where you are going to include all these things, right. Functional convergence means that you are doing certain things which is called lean manufacturing, which is very agile, where you are going to save and time, which is related to just time inventory, where you also try to maintain quality. All kind of things is related to what you call lean manufacturing, where you do not have inventories, right. Some examples that is given here like McDonald's hamburgers, fast service, consistent quality, even entertainment for kids. Another example that is related to organizational convergence, say steel industries, where there is a movement from mass production to mini mills, small steel mills have come up, right. One example that is given here like banks, where you can not only check accounts, but also see what is your savings, mortgages, you can even pay the bill and many other services that banks offer through internet services, right. So, this is where organizations converge together to offer certain services with each other, like technological convergence leading to hybrid cars, right. Then industrial convergence like Starbucks coffee, right. Then industrial convergence, you also have political advertisements, okay, from speeches to posters. And then if you look at the services, again you will find like eBay is an e-commerce company, right. How they have gone for industrial convergence, right. Then e-commerce revolution. Then bioartificial systems like medical testing, X-rays, MRIs, which okay, in services like Chinese medicine. So, all this is going to provide better quality services and also more accurate, better quality services, so that you are able to see that what is actually happening, right. So, with these examples I am trying to make you understand that these convergence of products and services are always good, and that is why you go for different kind of convergence, and then you adopt a strategy to ensure that these convergence happens. Now, moving further, when we move from convergence to strategic convergence, basically it is a new model for change. What I am trying to tell you here is that if you are going for one kind of change, then it is not going to be strategic in nature, because the convergence is not going to happen. Convergence happens when different activities merge together in a system, like a cell phone, which is a product, is a converged product where you are going to have different kind of activities together, right. So, any model of change must take into account of the reality of the multiple and concurrent changes. So, you make sure that multiple changes are happening and they are happening simultaneously, right. And this depends upon how ambitious you are so far as your change plan is concerned, right. So, if you are more ambitious about the change, then it is possible to see that this change is going to be more successful, provided you have a good architecture in place, good what you call a robust change architecture in place. If the change architecture is not good, then probably it would be very difficult, because the driving forces and the forces, positive and negative forces related to the change architecture does not lead to develop the kind of confidence which would require for the convergence, right. Now, related to this, there are two major statements, that is, if we assume that change proposals with less ambition is not going to be successful, because you are not even starting with proper plan, right. And it is not possible to meet the challenges which organization is facing with the current change plan, because it is not very ambitious. Similarly, if we accept that it is possible to propose changes which is very very ambitious, right, that is also going to fail. So, you need to ensure that you are going to have a plan which is going to be very very ambitious, but it should also be very very real, right. Neither it is going to be insufficient or less ambitious, or very very ambitious or very high ambitious. So, both of them are not going to help you to achieve the goals and objectives of the organization or the change plan. So, if you look at this new model for organizational change, which we call strategic convergence. So, it depends upon two things: the kind of ambitions that you have, make sure that you have appropriate ambition, neither very overt nor covert, right, and then you also make sure that you have an appropriate change architecture, right. So, this is related to what you call the appropriate structure, the resonance, the culture, leadership and the accelerator. So, all these factors converge together to ensure that your change plan is very very ambitious and you have a good change architecture. So, all these converge together, you can say, to ensure that you have a good architecture of change, to ensure that it is going to be successful. So, what we are going to discuss now is this various factors which is related to strategic convergence one by one, and the most important thing is the ambition in the change, right. So, ambition in the change is basically related to what kind of ambitious plan you have related to the change. So, if you go for to propose any kind of change, right, and you want to achieve certain objectives with that particular change, depending upon the kind of skills that people have and the capabilities and the resources. So, you can see that any change plan and objective is going to be successful only if it is matching with the skill, capability and the resources. If you do not have skill, capability and the resources, your change plan is not going to be successful, right. Are achievable given the organization's ability to fill gaps in its profile of the aforementioned. And if there is a gap in your skill, capabilities and resources, is it possible to achieve the goals and objectives? No, it is not possible. So, it is very very important to ensure that people have the skills and capabilities, and organization has the resources to ensure that any change plan that is proposed is meeting its objective, right. And that is how, when we go about defining the ambition, is related to what competitor organizations are seem to likely to achieve. It means that you should be ambitious enough to compete with your counterparts or other organizations who are working in similar industries. If you are not ambitious enough, then whatever change is being proposed by you and through which you want to meet certain objectives, it is not possible for you to meet them, because your competitors are way ahead. So, if your competitors are way ahead, then even if you have set a plan and have the capabilities and resources, it will be very difficult for you to achieve it. So, you need to ensure that whatever activities you are going to take up, right, in the organization, and look at your ambition, right, and make sure that your ambition is the best one, right. And ambition depends upon what? The skill, capabilities and the resources, right. So, that you are able to compare it with your counterparts or equivalents anywhere, or compare it to the world's best. So, if your ambition is comparable to others and it is best in class, given these skill, capability and resources, then it is possible for you to achieve those goals and objectives. Now, moving further, how we are going to have an ambitious plan, an ambitious program for change? It depends upon if you are able to identify these characteristics. An ambitious plan of change should have these characteristics. It means, it should be related to what you call creative destruction. It means, you have infrastructures, departments and activities and resources which is going to ensure that your ambitious program for change is successful. Then whether your change plan is going to deliver a clear and distinct growth in the value of the business or the activity of the organization. If it is not going to provide a distinctive value, it is not going to add any kind of value, then your program cannot be said to be ambitious. Then how it is meeting operational efficiency? The change plan has to deliver clear and distinct operational efficiency. Operational efficiency, here you can say it's related to improving quality, right, reducing cost, saving time, increasing efficiency of the operations. So, all this is related to what I call operational efficiency. Okay. So, if it is able to help you to improve, then you can say that your program is ambitious. Then how it is going to integrate various sources of knowledge, internal as well as external, related to the organization, its clients, markets and competitors, right. So, if it is able to integrate well, then you can say that yes, your program is more ambitious, otherwise not. And finally, what kind of other changes are happening in the organization. So, concurrent changes, if they are happening in the organizations, that is also important, right. So, you need to ensure the not integration with external and internal resources, but also see that all simultaneous changes which are happening are also going to be integrated with each other, right. And that is how we can say that based on these characteristics, you are going to have an ambitious program for the change. Now, moving further, if you look at the components of the architecture that we have been talking about, right, it includes what? Engagement from the top team, a steering process to ensure that leadership is effective, right, a process for integrating the work streams, what are the different activities and how these activities are going to be integrated with each other, right. It includes what? Tasks and resources. So, various tasks and various resources, how you can optimize, integrate with each other, right. Then infrastructure, whether you have appropriate infrastructure in place or not. If your appropriate infrastructure is not in place, then it will be very difficult to achieve the goals and objectives. Then about the people, what kind of HR policies and practices you adopt, because your compensation, your management system, your performance management system, all this is very, very important. So, you need to ensure that these HR policies are going to support it, and if it is not, then you go for some kind of transition in the policy and put an appropriate process which is going to be supportive to the change. Then when you are going to implement change, see that what kind of support is available in terms of resources, infrastructure, top management, people engagement, all kind of things. And then you also look at operational other departments, how they are going to support these kind of activities, right. So, we have already talked about the structure of the component, especially related to the change architecture, and then we looked into the process and also the outcome. So, what kind of structure would be required, because you need to ensure that you have an appropriate structure. What I mean to say by an appropriate structure is that what are the different processes, how these processes are being deployed to ensure that all the operations are going to support the change, right. Here we are going to talk about different kind of structure like performance management systems, governance system, risk management systems, or what are the unintended consequences which is likely to happen related to the change. So, you also need to ensure that your performance management system is going to support the change. Here you need to have a performance management system which include what is the budget for the rewards, okay, how you report on a monthly basis, whether you are able to reach your targets or not, what kind of key performance areas or indicators you have, whether you use balance scorecard for measuring the performance or not, what kind of performance appraisal system you use. So, all this is related to what you call performance management system. So, you need to ensure that you put an appropriate performance management system in place to ensure that it facilitates change. Then the governance structure. Governance structure basically is related to the arrangement regarding the accountability, who is going to be accountable for the change. So, if you have a good governance system with defined accountabilities for all the people, then it is good. Then risk management, because any kind of change involves some risk, because change is related to the future, and any kind of future activity entails some risk, because you do not know what kind of consequences it will have, right. So, you need to assess the risk in terms of both the change outcomes and also the risk of disruption with implementing change, whether what kind of change that you have been expecting and whether it is possible for you to assess the risk, and similarly when you are going to implement the change, what kind of change, risk is associated with that one. So, you need to assess both. Then unintended consequences, there are certain consequences which is not known beforehand, right. So, you have to see what kind of decision process will have. Suppose some change initiatives are not going to be successful, right, or it is derailing, then what kind of decisions you are going to take. So, look at all possible consequences, whether it is favorable to change or not, and see that how you can correct and monitor and review the things, so that any kind of unintended consequences which is not a part of the change program is going to affect you. Then resonance. Resonance is related to the people, where you try to say that there is a resonance effect. It means that people are more favorable to the kind of change that you want to bring, right. So, it is defined as an attempt to change someone's mind, right. So, the basic idea is that here is that you make sure that people are more favorable to the change process and they are going to accept it, right. So, when we are talking about resonance, it is basically an idea or view, a perspective which resonates to the extent that it feels right. So, people understand that okay, yes, it is something that is being done is good for them, right. So, that they feel right. For example, if you want to bring about some kind of changes in the structure of the organization, and because of this restructuring exercises, there could be changes in the level of the position of the people in the hierarchy, right. So, whether they are going to accept it or not, whether they think it is good or not, right, or whether it is appropriate for that particular situation or not. If they think it is there, then you are able to achieve this resonance. It means that yes, if they are able to accept it, then you do not need to even convince them that yes, why we are going for a change. So, it all depends upon people and their acceptance, and it depends upon the mindset of the people. If they are ready to accept it, then it is always good. So, how we are going to seek resonance? If it is meeting the requirements, if it is conversing with other activities, if they are able to adapt, it means that we need to ensure that people are flexible and adaptable enough to ensure that they are able to get it, and they are ready to experiment with. It means openness to experience is very important, and openness to experience basically relates to what you call willingness to experiment. You are willing to experiment because you are open to experience new things, and then everybody thinks that the customer is the most important thing, right. So, if all these activities are there, then probably it would help people to change their mind towards the any change initiative more favorably, otherwise it is not going to be favorable, right. So, resonance is related to the people's acceptance. Then another important factor is related to the change in the culture, right. Change in the culture, where you are going to bring about a very strong culture, where people's values and beliefs are aligned with the values, norms and beliefs of the organization, right. So, for change in the culture, you need to see what kind of characteristics are required, like evidence based leadership, where the leaders are ready to learn from experiences, right, and they also codify their learning and they build on that learning, right. Informed choices, where choices and decision making based on valid data. So, when they go for taking any decisions, they know why they are taking this decision, right. Then they have a problem orientation, right, which is going to be very constructive in nature, and it is related to the solution and achievements rather than failure, right. So, the problem orientation should be related to what you call solutions and achievement, not failures or blames. Then transparency, make sure that you adopt a process which is very transparent, and you are able to manage expectations. It means any change initiative gives rise certain expectations among the stakeholders, and then how are going to manage these expectations among the people. For example, if you say that this technological change is going to improve the productivities, and then how are you going to manage these expectations. So, you need to provide information about the impact, about the change process, that how this technological change is going to impact the work, right. So, you need to ensure that the culture is going to change, not only the culture, but also the leadership is very, very important. So, you need to ensure that the leadership is also supportive and provide all kind of say support to to those people who are looking for change, right, and also ready to solve the problems and look at the solutions that is available to them, right. So, if you look at the characteristics of the leadership, these are the characteristics which is very, very important, like credibility, right, the extent to which the leader has a successful track record of change management experience. So, if they have successfully implemented changes in the past, it would increase their credibility, whether it is visible to them or not, right. He should be accessible to everybody, he should have a learning orientation, sponsoring early adopters, the leaders sponsor support early adopters to go for accepting the change, and then ensure that there is no slack, right. They are not going to buy time for problems to be resolved. So, if they are going to buy more time to solve the problems, then it creates a situation which is known as organizational slack. So, there should not be any slack to ensure that as and when the problems come, the leaders are going to solve it, right. And then they need to encourage learning through this change, because any change initiative also provide lot of opportunities for new learning. So, and leadership provide an opportunity to ensure that these change initiatives give certain kind of learning experiences to the people. So, we talked about these kind of things. Now, we are moving to the next characteristics, that is accelerator effects, right. So, it should be considered as a project or the program. So, any kind of change should be considered as a program, which needs to be implemented successfully, and then you have to see whether this project and program tools and processes are in use. For example, when the government decided to move to say goods and services tax, right. So, it was considered as a program, and then you need to ensure that all the tools and processes are in place to ensure effective implementation of this program, what is known as goods and services tax, because if it is not available and then if you are going to implement this program, you are not going to be successful. So, these program management tools and processes actually accelerate the process in a positive way to ensure successful implementation of the change program, right. So, you have to see that you are going to use these tools, especially connectivity, right, how change initiatives are connected to the existing organizational processes, leverage, whether it is going to provide some leverage or not, in what way you can say that this goods and services tax is better than the earlier regime, earlier tax system, right, how it is going to be integrated, what kind of objectives it has. So, earlier we had a different kind of taxes, now all these taxes have been merged together with goods and services tax. So, in what way it is going to be integrated. So, you need to ensure an effective management of initiatives, so that you are able to achieve those objectives related to integration. Then the critical mass, that is very, very important. People have confidence in the outcomes. So, once GST was implemented, people must have confidence that this is a better system, right. And if that happens, then you can say that yes, this change program is going to be successful. So, when moving from one system to another system, consider it as a project management, ensure that you have tools and processes which is going to accelerate it, and if you have these characteristics, probably it would help you to implement it successfully. Now, we are going to look into the other part, since we talked about convergence and then strategy convergence. The next part is how we are going to link strategy, innovation and learning, because any kind of say change program which is related to either product and process, services innovation also bring about certain learning, right. So, it starts with what? Looking at the present, right. How what game we are playing, what kind of things we are doing, okay. What are the success factors which have help us to win the today, right. How we are going to compare ourselves with our competitors, what are the key industry drivers, what is our position, right. How well we are utilizing our assets and capabilities. So, with this you will be able to assess your agenda and whether it is possible for you to improve your performance or not. Then you move to this next one, that is what I understand potential discontinuities, what kind of change you want to bring about in product, technology or people, right. To redefine value creation for key customers market segments, because anything that you do must ensure that it is going to help you to add some kind of value for the customers or the market, and that is where you create an agenda for renewal, right. And then you move further where you are going to create the future, right. So, creating the future means that what kind of game you are going to likely to play in the future, with what kind of product or services you are going to offer, how you are going to accelerate industry and company transformation, which is going to be beneficial to you, what kind of business models you are going to use, what would be your capabilities, right, or what kind of capabilities would you require in the future. It means this is related to agenda for industry and transformation. Okay. So, you adopt a more strategic learning architecture, okay, and then you need to see that how your strategy, innovation and learning is linked with each other. So, what I am trying to tell you here, that when you go for any kind of innovation, you adopt a strategy and see what kind of learning happens, and how this learning is going to use to create a future which is going to be beneficial for you. Okay. Moving further, what you need to do, you need to create a learning architecture for strategic innovation, where everything converges together. So, these are the interventions that you require for learning, like looking at the structure part, organizational design, right, in terms of technology, environment, size, right, all kind of things. Then look at the culture part, then people, their capabilities, competencies, right, the innovation activities, then strategic and business objectives, and finally, how you relate it to the external worlds, right. So, all this is going to create arenas for corporate learning and interventions. So, you can plan interventions for learning to create an appropriate structure, culture, develop the capabilities of the people, define your business objectives, and how you are going to relate yourself with the external environment, right. So, learning interventions can be planned, so that these learning interventions are going to help you to do something that is going to be more innovative in terms of product processes, so that you are going to be competitive in the market. Thank you very much.